All right, so Chris and I were about 17 years old, and we decide we're going to go out and have a little fun. It's a random summer night, and I think we probably went out around, I don't know, 8 o'clock p.m. Decided we're going to just go figure out what to do, right? Fly by the seat of our pants. That's what we like to do a lot of times. We never had any plan. We just went and did things. So this night, I pick up Chris, and we drive into Springfield, which is like 10, 15 minutes. We live right outside of town, right? And we decide to head back to Meijer. If you listen to my recent story about Chris and I called Night of Nights, same store. We go into Meijer, and we go to the toy section. And we're just screwing around, playing with toys in the store, being obnoxious, bouncing on those bounce balls, that the ones you can sit on that you get in gym class, getting big foam pool noodles and having like jousting matches with them. Ridiculous teenagers acting obnoxious in the department store. And eventually, we're told that we need to leave. We're causing too much of a ruckus, okay? We're like, all right, we're out of here. But not before we buy something. So we look quickly through the toys, and we find what we want to get. 2 rifle cap guns, okay? They kind of look like shotguns, right? Almost like little sawed-off shotguns, right? But they got the orange tip on them and everything. Very obviously a toy gun, right? Super plastic, super cheap. They were probably like $10 a piece or something, okay? So we got these shotgun rifle. I don't remember exactly what they were. I just remember they were long guns, right? And they had orange tips on them. And they were cap guns. You got caps with it, and then we bought additional caps to put in them. And I'm sure everyone knows what cap guns are, right? You put the little things in them. It's got like gunpowder, and it just makes a loud popping sound. So once we leave the store, we're like, what do we do next? I don't know. What are we going to do? So we decide we're going to drive out to my buddy Ed's house. And Ed lives like 30 minutes out of town, right? In a little town out in the middle of nowhere called South Charleston. So we drive all the way out to South Charleston, right? It's like a 30, 35-minute drive from Meijer. And we get there, and it's late by this time. It's 10, 11 p.m. And all the lights in his house were off. You know, the neighborhood, it's like one of those small towns, closes down, you know, after sunset. And so we're like, let's fuck with him. Let's crawl up on his roof and knock on his bedroom door and kind of scare him, right? Well, so that's the plan, right? For some reason, let's go wake up Ed, right? He probably wasn't even asleep, but we assumed he was in his bedroom, okay? So we park my car down the street a little way so as not to raise attention in the house. And we scale the side of his house. We climb up. I think it was like one of those like lattice things on the side of the house. And we were able to climb up on the roof. But we brought the guns along because it just seemed cooler that way. We're like creeping through the dark, and we've got these rifles in hand, right? And we're like creep through all like we were breaching a building or something, okay? Taking out a high-value target. So, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the first thing we did when we got in the car with these rifles was break those little stupid orange tips off so that they would look a little bit more real. Stupid. So we climb up on Ed's roof, and we're like knocking on his window. And he's not answering the window. And we keep trying. No one's coming to the window. And we go down off the roof, go to the front door. We're like, all right, fuck it. This didn't work. So we knock on his front door. No one answers. No one is home. Okay. So we're like, well, that was a failure. That was a waste of like a 35-minute drive out here. Now we're going to have to drive 35 minutes back to town. And then what, right? By this time, like I said, it's like 11:30 at night, right? Well, there's a curfew in Springfield. The curfew is midnight, and no one under the age of 18 is to be out after midnight. And if you are, you can be ticketed. You can actually have to go to court for this, okay? Go to juvenile court. Probably have to pay fines. So, we didn't care. We headed right back into Springfield. It's like 11:30 at night. We know we're going to get there right around the time curfew is on, and we get back to town right around midnight, whatever, and we go to Main Street, which Main Street back in the 80s maybe was like still a hot spot. It's like where people would like park their cars and play their music and shit. But this was like 2002. Okay, it wasn't like that anymore. But Chris and I like to do ridiculous things like from eras past. Okay, like for example, one day we skipped school, and I might tell this whole story some other day, but we skipped school to go to one of the last remaining video game arcades that was in our town. It was in the Upper Valley Mall, and we skipped school to go play in the arcade all day because we had just gotten our tax returns back, and we blew our entire tax return checks in a mall arcade. Very, very much like someone would in the 1980s, but this wasn't the 1980s. It was the early 2000s. We like to like do things that we wish we could have done in the era when it was a thing to do. But even more so, doing it now is like that much more outlandish, right? Like who does that? Who does that? Who skipped school in 2002 to go play video games in an arcade all day? I mean, we're in the era of PlayStation 2. Like, no one was playing arcade games, but we were. We were there playing X-Men and Terminator. Like, anyway, I digress. Back to the story, okay? We get back into Springfield and we pull into a parking lot of a little grocery store called Howard's IGA. It was just like a little grocery store. We had 3 in our town. We had Kroger, Fulmer, and Howard's IGA. We pull into the parking lot of Howard's IGA, and we're sitting there, listening to music. We got the windows down, and we're in my new car. This is one of the reasons we wanted to go out that night, because I had just recently gotten my license. I had just recently gotten a car. It was a 1988 Oldsmobile Cutlass Calais. Beautiful car. Beautiful car. Like, if you saw one right now, you wouldn't think it was a beautiful car, but such a deal, man. I got this thing for $1,500, and you gotta think, I got it in 2002-ish, and it was a 1988 car, but it only had 43,000 miles on it. Interior was perfect, exterior was perfect, great car. Anyway, great first car. $1,500. Gee, can you imagine getting a nice mint car for $1,500? It was great. Anyway, again, I'm breaking away from the story. Okay, we're sitting in IGA, Howard's IGA parking lot. Windows down, listening to music. I remember Chris had his foot hanging out the window. Like, we're just hanging in the parking lot. Stuff that 80s kids would do. Stuff our parents did, but not something that people did anymore. All the while, it's after curfew. It's going on 12:15, 12:30 now. And we also have these rifles. These toy rifles, right? Loaded with caps. Well, Chris decided he would let off a few rounds in the parking lot. And there were a couple bystanders. There was like some people hanging around outside the store, and some, there was a couple cars there, people shopping, last minute stuff coming in and out. And Chris decides he's going to let off a few rounds into the air, right? Pop, 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 pop. And like, it startled a few of the people standing outside the store. And I'm like, God damn it, dude, that was not smart. Let's get out of here, right? Immediately. Let's get the fuck out of here. So I pull out of the parking lot, and we pull out on the side street, and we go down the side street, make a couple turns, and now we're on High Street. And we're just cruising down a High Street, and then all of a sudden, whoop, 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 sirens, lights behind us. We were getting pulled over by the police. We knew we were out after curfew. We knew they were at least going to hassle us, because Chris was just firing off a cap gun in a parking lot. Okay. At the time, the cap gun rifles were in the back seat, laying on the back seat. Very visible. Well, the cops, they get out of their car and they say something over their siren. They ask us to get out of the car, right? Apparently, the call they got was that some kids had some guns and were firing them off in the parking lot at Howard's IGA. So, needless to say, they were on edge. They go over the bullhorn or whatever, and they ask us to step out of the car. So we do, and they're like, hands up, put your hands on the car, and wait. And we did, because we didn't want anything to happen to us. And they came up to the car, and they started patting us down and explaining why we were being pulled over. They said, for one, they asked for our IDs and everything, and they're like, well, how old are you? You're out after curfew. The reason we pulled you over, do you know why we pulled you over? We're like, curfew? They're like, well, yeah, but no. We got a call that some kids were firing off guns in the Howard's parking lot. We're like, guns? No. They're toy guns. They're cap guns. They're not real guns. And they're like, oh, toy guns. Well, that's called inducing panic. You can't do that. And we're like, shit. Oh my God. We're fucked, right? I remember as they were patting us down, I don't want to forget this. As they were patting us down, they asked, do you have any sharp objects in your pocket? If you ever get, patted down or arrested by a police officer, they'll ask you that. Because they're going to check your pockets and they don't want to get jabbed by any needles or anything. Well, when they ask us that, my cousin's natural reaction when asked, do you have anything in your pockets, is to check. So he goes to take his hands off of the car to reach in his pockets. They said, do you have anything sharp in your pockets that I might prick my hand on? Well, he wants to make sure. He doesn't want to. So he goes to reach for him. They're like, hey, hands on the fucking car. And they slam him up against the car. I'm like, oh shit, dude, we're about to something bad's going to happen. Nothing bad happened. He's just, okay, Jesus, okay, I'm sorry. So they pat us down. We don't have anything in our pockets, They see the toy guns laying across the back seat. They confiscate those. And this was a weird thing. So they said, all right, you guys are going to have to go downtown. And we're like, fuck. So this is like, we're getting arrested? And they're like, we need to go down there. We're going to fill out some paperwork, get your fingerprints and things like that. And then you'll be released to your parents or whatever. We're like, oh, okay. Well, that's weird. But here's the weird thing. I've never heard of cops doing this before. It's very strange. So they're like, we're going to take your buddy. This is what they said to me. We're going to take your buddy here in our cruiser. And you're going to drive in your own car. And you're going to follow us there. It was almost like, when you would trade like ransom, you would trade like prisoners back in like medieval ages or whatever, like medieval times, Middle Ages, when they were going to like negotiate a treaty or something. They would exchange prisoners to ensure that the other side wouldn't attack or whatever. But that's what it felt like. So they're like, we're going to take him with us to like make sure that I did come downtown, right? They wouldn't let us both drive because we might take off, right? So they're like, we're going to take him in our cruiser. You follow right behind. You're going to follow us down to the precinct. We're going to go in. We're going to get your fingerprints. We're going to call your parents, etc., etc. Now, my memory's fading on some of this, okay? I remember the really crazy stuff like that. But I do remember we got down to the precinct, and I remember sitting there for a long-ass time while they were questioning us about the guns and about why we were out after curfew and where we lived and who our parents were, all that crazy stuff. And then here's what I don't remember. I don't remember them calling our parents. It almost feels like they didn't call our parents. It's really weird. Like, they let us go after that. After we were there, they like fingerprinted us. They took our statements. We had to write a statement, and we had to sign a waiver and turn over the guns to be destroyed by the city. I don't know why. I guess because we broke the orange chips off. And I remember they chastised us for that. They're like, You broke the orange tips off? Are you fucking stupid? They're like, yes. Yes, we are. Yes, we are, officer. But they did. They ended up releasing us and letting us drive home, and it was like 2 a.m. by the time we got out of there. Easily. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's like, we're like, I hope we don't get pulled over again on the way home by another set of police officers. But yeah, it's wild, man. And the crazy thing is we ended up being charged for curfew violation. They did not charge us with like inducing panic or anything like that, like they said, but they did set a court date. We had to go to court, and I remember going to court and meeting with the prosecutor, and basically they kind of cut us a deal, and it was basically like, pay these fines. If you agree to pay this fine, then you won't have to go to actual court and maybe get sentenced, whatever. You know, they try to scare you. It's just like a speeding ticket. Like, they try to get you to just pay the ticket instead of actually standing in front of the judge. But, you know, we're kids. And our parents did take us to this. While my, foster mom took me here. And I remember it was fucked up because nowhere in the charges was there anything about the guns. It was just a curfew violation, right? But while we're sitting there with the prosecutor, I'm sitting there with my foster mom, and she, you know, she's very like conservative lady, very proper, and I remember the prosecuting attorney was reading through like the statements and everything, and reading through what happened that night, the officer's report, and she brought up the guns. They're like, and, you know, the issue with the guns and blah, blah, blah. And my foster mom was like, guns? What? And I'm like, no, they weren't real guns. They're like, well, it says here they had cap guns, but they had taken the orange tips off to make them look more real. And she was like, are you stupid? Like, it was ridiculous. But yeah, I'm like, why did they have to bring that up? It wasn't even in the charges. It had nothing. It was irrelevant, clearly, because they weren't charging us with anything for the guns. But anyway, yeah, so that's all that ended up happening. We had to pay some fines. We had to pay some court costs, things like that. And we, you know, kind of got let off the hook, I guess. But, I mean, it wasn't cheap. It was like, you know, hundreds of dollars, or maybe even $1,200 or something. I remember at that time we were making like $200-$300 a week, maybe, paychecks maximum. So it's a big chunk of change for some teenagers. But yeah, definitely, I wouldn't say we learned our lesson. We did plenty of dumb shit after that. And have definitely had run-ins with the police several other times. So I can't say we really learned our lesson, but that is the ridiculously dumb teenage story that I have to share today. The Adventures of Chris and Brett. There will be a lot more. I'm actually writing a book next year that is going to be chock full of these very stories, specifically the ones about Chris and I. It's going to be all about Chris and Brett's chronicles, our stupid, ridiculous teenage and early 20s adventures. So if you're interested in that at all, stay tuned. And I'll probably tell more of these stories here on the channel or on the podcast. So stick around if you enjoy it. If you enjoy stuff like this, please subscribe to the channel, or favorite or follow Daily BS Podcast. You can find that on any podcast app if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to subscribe on YouTube, please do. Please subscribe. And if you decide to stick around, if you decide to subscribe and stick around and listen to me rant, I try to do this every day. I pick a random topic and I talk about it. I try to do it every single day. I'm not perfect, but I try. And most of the time, I do it. If you're into that sort of thing, it's usually entertainment, pop culture stuff, but sometimes it's ridiculous stories like this. So if you're into that, please subscribe or favorite or follow the podcast. If you decide to do that, then I will talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks for listening.